Crisis in Ukraine obviously showing no signs of letting up.
Where does it go? How does it end? Let's ask former State Department official Bill Smullen. Our good friend Bill's back. Thanks so much for joining us again.
My pleasure, Jeff.
Let's start here, Bill. How much longer does this thing go on, and how do you see it ending?
I think it's hard to tell because the Russian army has not performed as well as they thought they would, and the Ukrainian resistance has been incredibly strong. So I have three possible scenarios of how this may play out. One, Putin and his army will eventually be successful and will occupy Ukraine and declare victory. Secondly, there could be some compromise that would be ideal, but Putin isn't one to easily yield to middle ground, but that's a possibility. The third possibility, which is a bit extreme, is that those around Putin will conclude that he is unstable, irrational, not mentally fit, and there will be a coup. And that is not out of the realm of possibility. But my guess is it'll be the first of the three, and that is Russia will eventually be victorious. The problem is, what he's going to face is what you deal with when you enter a China shop, shopping, and you drop a plate. You break it, you buy it. If he inherits Ukraine, he will buy everything with respect to managing that country and its people. Not just the heat and the electricity, not just the food and the water and the medical supplies. He will inherit everything, and I'm not sure he's quite ready for that.
And so he gets Ukraine, let's say. Does he stop? How far does he go?
Well, what he wants to do is resurrect the what was the Soviet Empire and make it the Russian Empire. There are two other targets that he could go after. They're not part of NATO, and so he does not fear that we are going to get involved. They are Georgia and Moldova. And I would not be the least bit surprised if he went after one or both of them. However, his army is exhausted, so he isn't going to just be able to keep on keeping on.
Bill, there's an incredible humanitarian crisis happening. I mean, we see it every night. It's going to continue for a long time. How's it dealt with in Ukraine whenever the fighting's done there? And how does the world deal with Ukrainian refugees? Well,
humanitarian crises are not something that we haven't had to deal with. Think of Afghanistan, well over 100,000 refugees which have been resettled in various parts of the United States and other places. And think of the Syrian humanitarian crisis 8 years ago that overwhelmed Europe with people having to be settled. So a lot of the refugees, 1 million of them from Ukraine already, will probably be given an opportunity to settle down in other countries or live with relatives. And in New York State, the governor has said New York's doors are open to refugees. So if they are coming our way, we're just going to make them feel like we have with other refugees from other countries in the past, make them feel welcome and part of this community. Right. And I think that's something that we can do. And the problem is that most of the refugees thus far are women and children. Their male husbands and relatives are still back in Ukraine. So there will have to be a humanitarian corridor that will be created so the men and others who want to exit the country can do so safely.
If you could share your thoughts on this, we've got about a minute left. You know, we've seen war footage before, but really nothing quite like this before. If you could share your thoughts on that, because it's so troubling for us to see.
Well, I think Americans are exhausted with war to begin with. So when we see war, even in another form, it just chills us, and we just want to turn our head away because it's just so inhumane. However, I'm just going to give a potential bright spot. There has to be some light at the end of the tunnel, and I would just say, with respect to NATO, it is stronger today than it has ever been, and that is a very wonderful condition to experience. Secondly, at home, there may be a bridge that is being built between this divisive Congress and this divisive population, because we're all saying the same thing, and that is root for Ukraine. see it come to a favorable end. So there may be things that come out of this that are more positive than we can anticipate at this time, but I'm going to be an optimist and say, let's hope so.
Bill Smullen always finds that little glimmer of hope in there.
We need to hear it, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bill, thanks so much for joining us again. Really appreciate it. You be good.
Welcome, Jeff, Christy. You're welcome.